lacks judgment, and that is so important for somebody at the top of politics. If you don't have the right judgment, you're not going to last long. So you ask the question, how does he get this off the front pages? Here's what I'm going to say about that. This is not going to go away until he reveals his secret.
Isabel Oakeshott recently delivered a sweeping critique of UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, launching a series of attacks aimed at his perceived failures, political inconsistencies, and lack of vision. Oakeshott's arguments encapsulate a deep disillusionment with what she and some others view as Starmer's bureaucratic managerial approach to governance, which, she argues, has caused both internal discord within his party and dissatisfaction among the British public. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. Oakeshott focused her criticism on Starmer's leadership style, describing him as more of a technocrat than an inspiring leader. She argued that while Starmer's strategy might appear meticulous, his policy decisions have frequently alienated traditional Labour supporters and failed to resonate with the public. Starmer's handling of certain policy areas, particularly his stance on welfare cuts and social policies, was a particular point of contention. For instance, Oakeshott highlighted the disconnect between Starmer's high-income lifestyle and his support for austerity-like policies, such as limiting welfare benefits, which some see as directly harming the most vulnerable in society. This contradiction, she suggested, undermines his credibility as a representative of the working class. Oakeshott also touched on controversies surrounding Starmer's acceptance of high-value gifts and donations, including designer clothing, suggesting that such behaviors reveal a level of hypocrisy. In her view, these actions have severely impacted Labour's image, leading to discontent among MPs and constituents alike. She argued that the contrast between Starmer's privileges and the sacrifices imposed on everyday citizens reveals a failure to lead by example, something she considers critical for a Labour leader. Moreover, Oakeshott raised the issue of nepotism, alleging that Starmer's inner circle is filled with close allies rather than experienced politicians. She argued that this undermines the party's overall effectiveness and sidelines veteran MPs who bring historical perspective and insight, which could have otherwise guided Starmer's administration. Her claims point to a growing frustration within Labour ranks over Starmer's preference for loyalty over competence, which, she argued, has weakened the party's intellectual and ethical backbone. On foreign policy, Oakeshott criticized Starmer's controversial handling of the Chagos Islands dispute, where he has supported ceding control to Mauritius. She argued that this decision reflects Starmer's tendency to make concessions on issues of national interest to maintain favor with international allies, a move she suggested lacks a strong sense of British sovereignty. According to Oakeshott, this kind of compromise threatens the country's long-term interests and showcases a prime minister overly concerned with pleasing foreign powers rather than prioritizing national integrity. Oakeshott's critique also encompassed Starmer's approach to free speech. She portrayed him as being unsupportive of robust political discourse, suggesting that he is quick to silence critics within his ranks. This alleged intolerance for dissent has reportedly fostered an environment of fear among Labour MPs, many of whom, Oakeshott claims, feel unable to voice concerns about the direction in which Starmer is leading the party. This intolerance, she argues, represents a betrayal of the democratic principles that Labour historically champions, further alienating voters who value open debate and accountability. Isabel Oakeshott's critique of Keir Starmer digs into far-reaching concerns that question his capacity to maintain the Labour Party's traditional principles while keeping it relevant in modern British politics. Central to her criticisms is her argument that Starmer lacks a unifying vision, which has led to his inability to bridge the widening gap between Labour's historic working-class base and the more centrist urban voters who are often less invested in traditional Labour values. This disconnect, she claims, has only worsened since Starmer took office, resulting in policies that fail to satisfy either group fully. One of the central elements of Oakeshott's critique is her assertion that Starmer has failed to revive Labour's identity, leaving it in an ambiguous space between left-wing principles and centrist pragmatism. She argues that this compromise has resulted in a diluted brand of Labour politics, lacking both the passion of the traditional Labour movement and the decisive appeal of a modern, forward-thinking agenda. Oakeshott points to Starmer's inability to articulate a strong ideological stance as a weakness that has left the party adrift, at risk of alienating longtime supporters and failing to attract new ones. This ideological ambiguity, according to her, is why Labour under his leadership has struggled to inspire confidence or stand as a credible alternative to the Conservative Party. Oakeshott's comments also touched upon what she sees as Starmer's overly cautious political approach, which she believes has hampered his ability to lead decisively. Her criticisms highlight Starmer's tendency to avoid taking clear stances on contentious issues, preferring instead to adopt a wait-and-see strategy that she characterizes as indecisive and weak. This has led to accusations from within his party that he is overly reactive rather than proactive, failing to present a clear vision or a decisive roadmap for Britain's future. This tendency, Oakeshott argues, reveals an aversion to political risk that has ultimately undermined his credibility as a leader capable of tackling the pressing issues facing the country. In her critique, Oakeshott also drew attention to what she sees as Starmer's failure to address the structural issues within the Labour Party itself. She argues that despite his promises to unite and reform the party, he has largely avoided confronting the factionalism and ideological divides that have plagued Labour in recent years. Instead, she accuses Starmer of relying on disciplinary measures to silence dissent, rather than fostering genuine dialogue and consensus among party members. This approach, she suggests, has only deepened divisions within Labour, creating an atmosphere of mistrust and resentment that threatens the party's long-term cohesion. Another area of concern for Oakeshott is Starmer's economic policies, which she views as lacking in both substance and ambition. She criticizes him for failing to provide a robust economic plan that addresses the challenges facing the British economy, particularly in the wake of Brexit and the COVID-19 pandemic. According to Oakeshott, Starmer's economic strategy has been characterized by vague promises and incremental reforms that do little to address the systemic issues underpinning Britain's economic malaise. She argues that his reluctance to embrace bold, transformative economic policies has left Labour without a compelling alternative to the Conservative Party's approach, further weakening its appeal to voters. Oakeshott also expressed doubts about Starmer's handling of Britain's international relations, particularly in relation to his stance on Brexit and his interactions with the European Union. She argues that Starmer has failed to develop a coherent foreign policy that reflects Britain's changing role in the world, leaving the country without clear direction in its post-Brexit landscape. This, she suggests, has eroded trust in his ability to navigate the complexities of international diplomacy and protect Britain's interests on the global stage. For Oakeshott, this lack of clarity in foreign policy is symptomatic of a broader issue within Starmer's leadership, a failure to articulate a cohesive vision for Britain's future that resonates both domestically and internationally. In addition, Oakeshott's critique delves into Starmer's perceived lack of empathy and connection with ordinary Britons, arguing that his background and lifestyle have distanced him from the struggles faced by many of his constituents. She contends that his privileged upbringing and career as a lawyer have left him out of touch with the economic hardships experienced by working-class communities, which has contributed to his inability to connect with voters on a personal level. This disconnect, she argues, is a significant liability for a Labour leader, as it undermines his ability to serve as a genuine representative of the working people who form the backbone of the Labour Party's support base. In her criticism, Oakeshott also highlights Starmer's approach to social justice issues, which she argues has been inconsistent and at times contradictory. She points to his handling of issues such as race relations and gender equality, suggesting that his policies lack coherence and fail to adequately address the structural inequalities that persist in British society. This, she contends, is indicative of a broader failure to engage meaningfully with social justice concerns, which has weakened Labour's appeal among progressive voters and undermined its claim to be a party committed to equality and fairness. Oakeshott's scathing analysis also includes a critique of Starmer's approach to environmental policy, which she views as lackluster and insufficiently ambitious. She argues that despite his rhetoric on climate change, Starmer has failed to present a comprehensive plan to address the environmental crisis, leaving Labour without a clear stance on one of the most pressing issues of our time. This, she contends, has not only damaged Labour's credibility among environmentally conscious voters, but has also weakened its position in the broader political landscape, where climate change is increasingly seen as a defining issue. Furthermore, Oakeshott's critique suggests that Starmer's leadership style has stifled innovation within the Labour Party, preventing the emergence of fresh ideas and new voices. She argues that his preference for centralized control and his reliance on a close-knit group of advisors have created an insular environment that discourages dissent and stifles creativity. This, she claims, has prevented Labour from evolving in response to changing social and political dynamics, leaving it increasingly out of touch with the concerns and aspirations of the British public. Building on Isabel Oakeshott's sharp critique, she also underscores what she sees as a significant missed opportunity for Keir Starmer to revitalize Labour by appealing to a broader, aspirational middle-class base. She argues that this group, often eager for strong public services and economic growth, has been left unimpressed by Labour's lukewarm policy offerings and perceived lack of a transformative agenda. Oakeshott suggests that Starmer's reluctance to embrace more decisive economic reforms aimed at improving social mobility and supporting small businesses has hindered his ability to attract these voters, who are increasingly seeking a party that balances economic pragmatism with a clear social mission. This, she asserts, has limited Labour's growth potential, as the middle class is critical for building a winning coalition in modern British politics. Oakeshott's assessment also questions Starmer's adaptability, suggesting that his leadership style lacks the flexibility needed to respond to rapidly shifting political dynamics. She contends that Starmer's adherence to a cautious, technocratic approach has made him ill-equipped to handle unexpected crises, an approach which may struggle under the weight of Britain's complex post-Brexit, post-pandemic landscape. She emphasizes that the role of a prime minister requires not just managing established policies, but also swiftly adapting to new realities, something she feels Starmer's leadership style fundamentally lacks. In her view, this rigidity has prevented Labour from positioning itself as a bold and responsive party that can tackle the nation's modern challenges. Beyond the domestic implications, Oakeshott touches on how Starmer's leadership could impact Labour's role in the international arena. She argues that Starmer's pragmatic, low-profile approach to foreign policy might appeal to some voters, but it also risks rendering Britain's role on the global stage more passive, reducing its influence within crucial alliances. This approach, she suggests, reflects a reluctance to take a strong stance on contentious international issues, a choice that could lead Britain to miss opportunities to assert its interests and maintain influence in a world where global power structures are continually evolving. Oakeshott also draws attention to the broader implications of Starmer's leadership for Labour's political future. She warns that his failure to present a compelling vision risks the party's electoral prospects in upcoming general elections. As the party seeks to regain voter trust, especially after years of internal turmoil under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, Oakeshott argues that Starmer's hesitance to move decisively on key policy issues has created an opening for the Conservatives to dominate the political discourse. She highlights the rise of more populist movements and the growing fragmentation of political allegiances as a challenge for Labour, which, under Starmer's direction, has struggled to forge a clear alternative to the status quo. This leadership void, Oakeshott contends, creates an environment ripe for a new, more dynamic political force to emerge. Her critique suggests that unless Starmer can rediscover his political purpose and unite the various factions within the party, Labour risks fading into political irrelevance. She emphasizes that voters are looking for boldness and conviction, qualities she believes Starmer has yet to fully demonstrate. As such, his future as Prime Minister hinges on his ability to deliver not just policy, but a strong narrative that resonates with the electorate. Finally, Oakeshott hints at how Starmer's leadership impacts Labour's youth appeal, a critical demographic for long-term party vitality. With young voters increasingly motivated by issues like climate action, social justice, and digital rights, she argues that Starmer has missed an opportunity to harness their enthusiasm and bring fresh energy to Labour's platform. Instead, his policies appear to lack the visionary scope that younger voters are often drawn to, resulting in what she views as a significant loss in potential grassroots support. Overall, Oakeshott's critique of Keir Starmer encapsulates a deep-seated skepticism about his capacity to rejuvenate labor and position it as a compelling alternative in the contemporary political landscape. Her analysis presents him as a leader caught between competing political identities, one who has failed to fully embrace either the traditional labor roots or the demands of a modern, aspirational society. This complex dynamic, she argues, has left the party in a weakened state, struggling to inspire both its base and the broader electorate. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us? What are your thoughts on Isabel Oakeshott's criticism of Keir Starmer? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.